This Oklahoma Sooner is reminding you who he is.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply over at Game Time. Ole Miss is going to be a problem. We got a young cornerback emerging, but first here on Locked On Sooners, we're going to talk about the offense starting to find its stride a little bit. Oklahoma had another scrimmage on Wednesday, and it went a lot better according to those who were witness to it. And let's start here. Jovantae Barnes, after an injury-plagued 2023 season, kind of became a bit of an afterthought this offseason as Gavin Sawchuk ran for 100 yards over 5 straight games to finish the season. He didn't play in the spring game. Jovantae Barnes didn't. And there was speculation. I remember even on this show, we speculated, could this mean Jovantae Barnes might transfer? Well, that never happened. There was never any inclination, or there was never even a rumor that he was considering it. And then obviously did all the summer workouts, was in fall camp. And when he spoke with the media, said there was never a chance that I was going to transfer. Because again, like we've talked about so many times on the show in relation to other players, he's trusting the process. So Jovantae Barnes, according to George Stoya of Sooner Scoop and On 3, looked really, really good in the latest scrimmage. He came out and said that he was one of the highlights, that the run game has been one of the highlights of fall camp so far. And he was one of the better players in this. He had several long and physical runs and is showing maybe he's going to get a lot of run this year for the Sooners at running back.
Yeah, the offense is starting to get back to humming, right? It's funny because people were freaking out. I wasn't. You weren't.
I wasn't.
You know, we knew the logic behind this, that, you know, as people were freaking out in regards to how the first scrimmage went, but that's how it's supposed to go, right? Most of this stuff is geared toward the defense. Listen to Teddy Lehman. He talked about it on the Oklahoma Breakdown that when you're going through camp, especially a lot of these camps, they're geared more towards the defense because mainly the defense knows what's coming. They're prepared. And now certain things are loosening up and they're starting to actually start scheming against the defense, and you're seeing Jackson Arnold do better. But the one that, of course, jumped out to me, even, you know, over the last couple of weeks since fall camp started, as you mentioned, Jovantae Barnes. We may have the two-headed monster running game that we were asking for last season. We didn't get it last year. We had a lot of just all over the placeness with the players that were playing. DeMarco Murray trying to figure out which worked best, and then you didn't get Tyree because he ended up getting quote-unquote suspended for a week because of beef and stuff, or just getting into it or whatnot with the coaches. And now he's doing good up there at Wisconsin. We may now get, like I said, that two-headed monster we wanted out of Barnes and Sawchuk. That, to me, is probably one of the bigger stories out there. It's funny, I cannot recall who I was listening to, but they were talking about Oklahoma. And they said, it was Pate, actually. It was Josh Pate. I think it was him. He was talking about sleeper players to consider. And he immediately said Sawchuk. He was like, look, this kid ran for over 700 yards. And with a piecemeal offensive line against Arizona, he put up over 100-something yards. So he may be a player that that people aren't paying attention enough to. And I feel like the same thing with Barnes too. And so I guess now the question is, how does everybody else place in there? Where do you see a Caleb Hicks? Where do you see a Emeka Megwa? Taylor Tatum? The room might be a lot more stacked than we thought.
Yeah, if you're looking at Gavin Sawchuk, Jovantae Barnes being your 1-2 at running back, okay, Caleb Hicks is a good player. You've got time to continue to develop him. Same with Taylor Tatum. You don't have to rush him out on the field and, put a big, heavy workload on him. You can get his feet wet early in the season. Same with a guy like Xavier Robinson and Emeka Megwa. You can get these guys some run, give them a couple series here and there during the first 3 games of the season, the non-conference. If they go according to plan, you get an opportunity to get those guys run. but you don't have to overexpose them. You don't have to overextend them because you've got two veterans in Sawchuk and Barnes that if they stay healthy can be very, very productive for you. This could be the Cheez-It Bowl realized all season long because you have a duo that is dynamic and diverse in their skill sets. And I think both can create big plays. Both are a little bit different. Sawchuk, maybe a little more wiggle. He's going to get out. He's going to use his speed. Barnes, a little more physical, going to pound you a little bit. He's going to take on contact and create yards after contact. Another notable, Deion Burks, man. I don't know how we can be maybe underrating what Deion Burks is going to mean for this team, but there's a chance that he could have one of the great Sooner seasons. Nick Anderson's out with an injury. Jalil Farouk's been out with an injury. He's back. Angelo Anthony is supposed to be ready for the start of the season. Jaden Gibson's out. Deion Burks has been the only constant all offseason. So that chemistry that Jackson Arnold is developing with his wide receivers, it's like eHarmony level chemistry right now with our man Deion Burks. Like they are lockstep. And I think it's going to create a ton of big plays, but they're going to get Deion Burks the ball in every aspect of the offense.
That's going to be the goal. They've got to find a way to get him the ball, especially in space. Let him do work, right? And so I saw that the FanDuel dropped their preseason Biletnikoff awards odds, and Deion Burks is right there in there, plus 1,800. So
those are tasty.
That put him.
I'm loving those.
It's like it puts him 8th on that list, which seems like the number 8 is landing everywhere for Oklahoma. Number 8th in the SEC, 8th in coaches ranking, 8th in paying the coach, just 8th, 16th in the AP poll. I'm just saying it feels like a lot of 8s are populating here, and it may be a good thing for us. But, right.
8th national title.
8 going for the 8th national title. The number 8 likes us. But Deion Burks is here at number 8 on the Biletnikoff, so he's starting to get the attention. People are recognizing, hey, if we get him into that Stoops role, people are thinking, if they get him in that Stoops role, 100 catches is easy. He's definitely going to do more than 900. He's going to do 1,000. He's going to be 10 yards per catch easily if Oklahoma does that. And so all we need to do is keep Jackson Arnold upright. Again, you're going to hear me say this a lot here on my channel, anywhere else to talk about it. The defense is the most important thing for this team. If that defense does all the work, the offense doesn't have to do as much heavy lifting.
And it sounds like the defense is continuing to do some good things in fall camp. I had another interception of Jackson Arnold in the red zone, and that stuff's going to happen. He's going to be testing himself and testing the defense. And listen, The defense is going to win some. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, if he's not
a defense that's going to be one of the best in the country in 2024, that's bound to happen with your quarterback.
Right. If he's not throwing interceptions, then I think it's a problem. That means that he's not forcing things or trying things out. You don't want your quarterback to be safe in camp. You want him to go out there and gunsling it. See if you can make the throw. That way, when you get in season, you don't try it, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you, in this case, he's throwing it and he's saying, okay, I need to adjust it this way. Because I think some of his passes, the big knock, quote unquote, knock on Jackson is that his passes kind of carry. Right? They kind of get a little wind underneath them and pick up a little more than they should. And it's because he throws so hard and sometimes he just releases it at the wrong spot. But if he gets that fine-tuned, which he's a true sophomore, we got to give him grace as a true sophomore. I mean, actually, talking about it with my boy Coop. And remember the Kyler Murray controversy? Right? Everybody was thinking he was struggling in camp. And they were like, nah, I think Kendall needs to go ahead and take that job. It's like, this is a good problem to have. Hopefully Michael Hawkins is as good as everybody's predicting him to be, because it'd be fantastic to have him come in right behind Jackson Arnold, or if he has to overtake him, who's going to complain about it? But you want them to test. You want them to push each other. You want them to throw. I want him to throw in the. I want to see him try to throw the ball through the eye of a needle if he can. Right? Just try it. See if you can do it. I mean, you can, but I mean, hey, you may shock me if you throw it hard enough.
Yeah, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
A camp interception. It's not going to count against you in a game. It's not going to count against you in your stats. You're going to learn from it. And I think we don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to be a problem until we actually see this guy play a stretch of meaningful football, which we're going to get to here in a few weeks. And we're going to get to see him against SEC competition in a little over a month. that's when we can start having real conversations about Jackson Arnold's performance. Let's not overreact to what happens in camp, except that this cornerback is starting to emerge, and I think that's a great sign for the Oklahoma Sooners. You're trying to find yourself some tickets, got to go to Game Time. It is the best place to get last-minute tickets on Major League Baseball or college football that's approaching. They got the killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time is an official marketplace dealer of Major League Baseball, and they help take the guesswork out. I'm looking over at the Game Time app right now, and I'm seeing tickets for Oklahoma football as low as $27 against Houston, $33 against Tulane, $29 against Temple. You get into SEC play, things get a little bit more pricey with Tennessee, but hey, as low as $65 against South Carolina. So a lot of great options in store for you if you're trying to find some tickets for this fall. And I know you're trying to find some tickets for this fall because you're excited about what the Oklahoma Sooners are going to do in their first go round in the SEC. Go check out the Game Time app, download it in your app store or the Google Play Store, create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football, expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, be on the lookout for the Locked On SEC preview that's going to be dropping in your feeds here in the next week or so, getting you ready with hosts covering every SEC team. I think except Mississippi State was on the docket, but we got coverage for you here because we cover your team every single day. You're going to get Oklahoma Sooners, but you're going to get insight from hosts across the country and across the SEC footprint. As we get ready for the 2024 college football season, on defense, maybe the only position that we have questions about is cornerback. And that's because Gentry Williams, coming off of the shoulder injury that he suffered and dealt with all year long last year, got a little bit dinged up in Oklahoma scrimmage this past Saturday. Woody Washington's back, but moving all over the defense. You need improved cornerback play, and it sounds like Oklahoma might be really heading in a nice trajectory as it pertains to cornerback play.
Yeah, it's the little nervous on the Gentry piece, right? You know, he's coming off shoulder surgery and he spent all the spring on that, but they said he looked good and healthy, and then he probably, got a little stinger from it, because he's pretty aggressive out there at corner, which, you want, right? You want a guy that's like that, but you don't want to be too aggressive when he has a shoulder situation like he does. But the anticipation I've heard from people out of Tulsa area where he's from, Tulsa Booker T, that he'll be ready for game one and be just fine. And so they're probably going to rest him up, make sure everything's good, just keep him warm and everything, and make sure he doesn't hurt himself, but get him out there for Temple to see, level set and then see what it looks like going up against Tulane, right? That's going to be probably one of the critical games because Tulane's going to be a physical one. It's one that he's going to really need to hit somebody. Mario Williams may show up or something across the middle and you had to go after him. But anyway, there are a lot of questions when it comes to the secondary, especially the corner spot, because, John, as we talk about it, when you take Gentry out, take Woody out, because I think Woody's going to move around. That's kind of been some of the reports. They want to move him around in multiple spots. Who do we really see going out there at corner? Because I've one name that's been jumping out in camp. One name y'all need to know about. One name that it seems to be the one that y'all be prepared for. Jacobe Johnson. 6'2", 200-pounder. Hops, because he's a basketball player. And he's fast. Like another Gentry, but I think he's bigger. John, could the young boy go in there and take some game?
Yeah, Mustang Zone, Jacobe Johnson looks like he's starting to emerge a little bit. George Stoya said he is starting to make a serious push for the rotation. He's inexperienced, but still has a ton of playmaking ability. Yep. And that's what the staff is loving about him right now. And that's the exciting thing. Brent Venables' defense wants players that are going to make plays. we're not just trying to keep everything in front of us and not give up big plays and not, nickel and dime people to death and not make people drive the field. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you want to make people drive the field, but you're going to want to make plays on the football when you get an opportunity to make plays on the football. And I think that's what they love about Jacobe Johnson. His experience as a wide receiver there, also with Mustang, I think that benefits him, because when you're a wide receiver of his size, you're doing a lot of contested catch stuff. You're going up to get the football. You're going above the rim to challenge the ball in the air. And that's going to bode well for him as he makes that full-time commitment to cornerback. And the 4-star prospect out of high school is going to get a chance to play some this year. Gentry Williams, I mean, if he's healthy and he's good, he's your primary starter at corner, but they're going to rotate guys. We've seen him do it. Woody Washington, he's going to get a lot of run at cornerback as well. We've heard really good things out of Eli Bowen, and you love the talent you have with the Makari Vickers, Des Malone, but Jacobe Johnson, best case scenario is he is your third corner. He's that backup corner to both either spot. And he does get a lot of run this year, because that means his trajectory is on pace to start for you in 2025 at the very least.
Yeah, and that's when you're looking, right? You can't look at just this season, because the good thing for this season is we have a lot of experience that's going to be playing. So yeah, we've got to start looking at next season. So your Jacoby's, your Makari Vickers, right? You got Jeremiah Newcomb who just came in. You got a lot of young players that you're going to start to build up. But the good thing is that majority of our corners we're building a good amount of veteran presence here, which I love that it's starting to come that way. But yeah, you got to start looking down the line too with how you're going to play people. And so Dobie's going to probably be gone after this year. So is Woody. The expectation is Gentry most likely, unless, knock on wood, hopefully he doesn't deal with injuries. If he does deal with too many, he'll probably be back one more year, which that's not a bad thing. It's actually probably a pretty good thing. Kanai Walker, I'm wondering how much longer he's got. I think he's got I think he came here as a redshirt sophomore. So
yeah, he's going to have time.
So I think he's got an additional year, but he's another emerging name, right? He's probably been the most consistent. And I think it's because he's very much a veteran, because he came here from Louisville. Mm-hmm. And so he's got immense talent. I think he's one that once you put him in the right spots, I think him and Des Malone together in more of a zone setup, it's going to be nasty for defenses to try to figure out. You have your Gentry and a Jacoby you probably put Jacoby as the boundary guy and Gentry as field, because Gentry is the more experienced dude. He's the one you trust the most. But the room is really growing. And then, of course, little Eli Bowen, who's been everywhere between Cheetah and corner. John, I think Valai and him is doing some work.
Yeah, they've got a lot more depth now than they did when they got started here at Oklahoma. I mean, it's been transformed. I mean, Woody's the only holdover from the position. And then you've added a bunch of guys over the last 3 off seasons. Gentry Williams in that 2022 class. Kanai Walker, I think he came in as a transfer in the 2022 off season, if I remember correctly, if not the 2023 off season.
I think you're right.
But he's been here a minute. But I mean, it's been a massive overhaul on both sides of the ball. I mean, Brent Venables has highlighted that each off season, how much turnover they've had. But I think you look at the work that Jay Valai has done on the recruiting trail, both in the transfer portal and in the high school ranks. And man, he's really set this thing up really, really well, because you've got 4-star cornerbacks waiting in the wings in Jacobe Johnson and Makari Vickers and Jeremiah Newcomb. You've got young athletic playmakers, even though maybe a little bit undersized, and Eli Bowen and a guy that's going to be coming soon, Malik Hawkins as well. Like this cornerback thing is set up to be really, really good moving forward in 2024 and moving forward. I think it's probably one of the under the radar positions, because you're so excited about what you have up front with the defensive line. You're really, really excited about your linebacker and safety groups. That cornerback is kind of flown under the radar because there's so much talent on this defense. But that's going to help the cornerback room so much, especially if you get guys like R. Mason Thomas and Adepoju Adebaware getting consistent pass rush and getting off the ball really quickly and staying healthy. It's going to help those cornerbacks not have to cover for 4 seconds, 5 seconds. You're covering more than 2.5 seconds, and it's going to be a struggle for anybody. So if we can improve the pass rush, it's going to greatly improve what we see out of this cornerback room this year and moving forward.
Yeah. The depth that we have is going to be so, and it's funny because as I think about this more, the depth that we have is going to be so interesting for fans to be able to say, guys, we have a defense that actually stops people from passing the ball, right? It's why it's a wild concept. I know it's something that Sooner fans are not used to. Y'all have heard me say this numerous times, but that's the thing to keep in mind is that as we've gone through each one of these positions, you got to look at it. We've got a defense that's got a 2 deep that can all actually play right now. It's shocking disbelief, something that we haven't seen in years.
Yeah, and we'll get to the safety group on our Friday episode. And, man, I cannot wait to talk about those dudes because it's a group of dudes. And we're going to need them all. They're all going to have to be big-time contributors because Lane Kiffin has done work in the transfer portal to create what could be a national title contender at Ole Miss. We'll discuss coming up next on Locked On Sooners. So the Ole Miss Rebels, one of the, I would say, trendy picks for the college football playoff and the national title. One of the teams that I've argued, along with like a Penn State, are the greatest beneficiaries of the college football playoff expansion. Because if you're Ole Miss, you've been regularly dealing with and trying to overcome the hurdles that are the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Georgia Bulldogs, the LSU Tigers to a lesser extent.
Yep.
And now you have your chance to get into a tournament. And once you get into a tournament setting, anything can happen. So Lane Kiffin has been really, really going after players in the portal. He has become the portal king, and he did so this year, also adding Walter Nolan out of Texas A&M. They in the last off seasons, they've added Trey Harris, which was a wide receiver that Oklahoma was after. They brought in Jackson Dart, again, a player that Oklahoma was after before they ended up ended up turning towards Dylan Gabriel. Don't misquote me. Don't do it.
They're going to
misquote. And so this is a team that is going to be really, really good. It reminds me a little bit, though, of the Philadelphia Eagles super team. If you are an NFL fan at all, you remember a few years back, the Philadelphia Eagles had this big spending spree in the offseason, brought in a ton of talent, and dubbed themselves the super team, a la the Miami Heat of Bosch, LeBron, and Wade days. Well, it didn't work out for the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't make the playoffs. They kind of struggled to find chemistry. I'm not saying that that's going to happen to Ole Miss. I just wonder if they can pull it all together and get everybody on the same page. Because when you add a bunch of transfers and you make yourself a transfer destination, that's going to be the key factor, is
right,
creating an environment and a culture where everybody is on the same page.
Yeah, and he's living in that. He's doing the thing that we're wondering is going to make you, if it's going to make you successful or not, right? Yeah. You know, so far it's looking like he's getting. I mean, 11-2 last season, fantastic, first time in Ole Miss history they got 11 wins, and the way that the schedule is set because they lucked out because they weren't, all that great in the years once they added Missouri as well as Texas A&M. Their schedule is quite favorable for them to be able to do that again. Now, I mean, from Oklahoma, traveling to Arkansas and Georgia in a 3-game span with LSU mixed in there, we'll have to see if they show up for Wake Forest. But it's funny because that we were seeing all these reports about our scrimmage and everything, right? The first one, and how the quarterback just didn't seem well. The offensive line was kind of struggling. The defense was dominating. Seems to be the exact same problem at Ole Miss. So for us Sooner fans, it's probably one of those like, oh, we're not the only ones. And remember, Jackson Dart's been there the last few years. Like, we tried to get Jackson Dart, but we had Gabriel for 2 years. He's been there. This is his 3rd year. So for him, if he's struggling against that defense, it's either that they're all those transfers they brought in are just elite, or he's struggling. But I'll say this. I think their defense is going to be really, really good. I think that that's going to be the cornerstone of what they do. And they're not going to ask Jackson Dart to do too much. They're going to ask him to go out there, no need to win games. The defense is going to do most of that. But that's the other thing to keep in mind, Sooner fans. That's the thing I keep pointing out, and I'm hoping y'all understand. We ain't the only ones struggling in practice.
Yeah, that's what practice is for, right?
Right. Scrimmage is there for.
Yeah, we're going to have to bring Allen Iverson on to just talk about, we talking practice.
Practice? Talking about practice, man.
We're talking about practice. No,
Not
so
the
Ole
game.
Miss, I mean, they're a talented team. The SP Plus rankings love them. They're 6th in the nation in offensive SP Plus. They are 16th in defensive SP Plus, 8th overall, and are going to have a special teams unit that looks pretty good as well. They're 26 in the SP Plus ratings. And again, this is an analytical approach to try to define what teams are heading into the season. And that is despite not really having a lot of great returning production. If you go look at ESPN's returning production rankings, Ole Miss is sitting just in front of Oklahoma, or actually just behind Oklahoma at 68th in the nation. And a lot of that is due to the fact that they don't have a lot of returning production coming back on the defensive side of the ball, where they rank 94th, 35th on returning production on offense. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, if they can get all the pieces to fit, I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the nation. I really like Jackson Dart. I really like his game. Reminds me, honestly, a lot of Jackson Arnold. Big, athletic, physical, has a good arm, can sling the rock, can kill you in the quarterback run game if you're not paying attention. And they've got weapons. They've got a lot of weapons. Now they're dealing with offensive line turnover, like almost everybody in the country is dealing with offensive line turnover. So again, can they put the pieces together for Oklahoma? I mean, that's going to be a tough road trip. Going down to Oxford, it's going to be a magical tailgating environment. I know a lot of Sooner fans are already excited about it. But I think this is going to be one of those games that says a lot about who this program is. You go in and you win it, and man, you're going to be flying high. You play it close and you give yourself a chance to win at the end. I think you're still feeling pretty good about yourself. If you go in and you kind of get the brakes beat off you, you're going to have some questions about where you're headed, because this is going to be one of the best offenses in the country. It's going to be a huge test for this Oklahoma Sooners defense.
Yeah, 100%. We've got to see this. By the time we come up on the Ole Miss game, we should have a very good understanding of what our offense and our defense is going to look like. Same thing with them. At that point, a lot of the attrition is going to hit. It's going to probably start hitting. You'll understand who's actually playing. But that game, to me, is going to be a critical point, because it's right there, feels like right smack at the end of the second quadrant of the season. And that's going to be the week where it's going to be, all right, we go out there and we show out in that game, we may end up being home free from there. The ESPN game-by-game predictor, the predictions on that one, they favor Oklahoma right now. The computers like us.
The computers like Oklahoma
a lot. And I think it's like 50. It's not a big blowout, but it's like 52% is where we're favored in that game. And so as we move up into that one, the good thing is, you got that game, then the next week after traveling, you get Maine at the crib. So it's not a situation where you'll be looking ahead at anybody else, because Maine is a look ahead game from Missouri. So for us, we can focus all of our attention on Ole Miss, and it's going to be a good game. But I predict that I think Oklahoma can go out there and be the spoiler. I just think our defense at that point should show that we're here to spoil and break hearts and all of that.
Yeah, it's a critical stretch. You're coming like the 2 games prior to that, Texas, South Carolina. You get Ole Miss at the end of October, and then it's that final month of the season where, you have Maine, but then you've got Missouri, Alabama, LSU to close the season. If you can pick up that big win against Ole Miss at the end of November, that's going to really set you up to potentially make a run at, who knows, an SEC title game appearance, or at least a college football playoff appearance. But that's going to be a big, big game, big time matchup. And we don't have a time for it yet, but I bet it falls in the afternoon, kind of 2:30 kick time slot. It just seems like that's going to be kind of right in the ESPN SEC network wheelhouse for that one. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Also, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast for your second listen. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the Locked On with a link to the Locked On College Football podcast in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Another little aside here to close us out. Jordan Phillips, former Oklahoma Sooners defensive tackle, recruited by Brent Venables when he was still the defensive coordinator here, traded from the Giants to the Dallas Cowboys, going to have a chance to have a significant role. 9-year NFL veteran continuing his career in Big D.
We'll see him at Red River.
Yeah, this Sooner fan / Dallas Cowboys fan, really excited about that. We needed some defensive tackle depth, but that's going to do it again for today's episode. Follow Jay on Twitter at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, for all of the social medias. Again, at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer
Sooner.